Coming back to Christ, I grew up in the church, small town, rural Texas. I was baptized on Easter Sunday when I was 7 and attended a Christian summer camp a couple times. Eventually, we stopped attending service. A few years later, we moved to California and just never found a new church. In fact, my mom, my sister, and myself ended up questioning our faith and becoming agnostic. As far as I know, my dad was the only one to retain his beliefs, although he still doesn't attend church. I guess his prior experience put a bad taste in his mouth. I had a rough time in high school. To keep it brief, I struggled with addiction, was assaulted and abused, and had very little support or guidance. I went from simply not believing in God to blaming Him for all my pain. I couldn't comprehend that a God who loves me unconditionally would allow these things to happen. I spent a long time being furious with God instead of accepting things for what they were and healing. I would roll my eyes anytime someone told me they were praying for me, or that God has my back and loves me regardless of what I think about Him. Now, as an adult, I feel completely different. I felt myself feeling called back into Christianity. When I think about all the things that went down when I was younger, I no longer feel resentful or betrayed. I feel incredibly grateful that I was able to do a 180 and live a peaceful, happy, clean life. I feel lucky to be alive instead of burdened. I'm grateful to have made it out and am a better person because of it. I remember a number of times when I was questioning my faith, calling out to God to prove He exists, to prove His love for me. I see now that He did. I wouldn't be where I am today without His grace and forgiveness. I have a new appreciation for prayer. I finally understand just how personal and powerful it is to be included in a private conversation between God and fellow man. I feel excited to build my relationship with the Lord instead of obligated to by my peers. I finally understand for myself what God's love is and why others want to spread His word. All that being said, I've found myself longing for more community. I would love to find more people who have had similar experiences leaving and coming back to Christ. The beauty of the Japanese Catholic Church. I lived in Japan for 2 years, from 16-18, and always made a point of taking the train over a stop from my neighborhood to attend Mass at a very traditionally Roman parish. This past week, I took a vacation there with my fiancée. She is a big adventurer, explorer type, and we ended up visiting a lot of very obscure, rural areas that happen to have great history and hiking opportunities. We ended up visiting some local parishes. In reflection, I'm amazed by how different the Mass can be culturally, with all the parts intact and under the same umbrella of Rome. You will see consecrated churches that look no different in terms of architecture from the temple next door, the only difference outside being the cross on the gable. At many Masses, the floors are tatami mats, where you stand barefoot before the altar during Mass until it's time to kneel. Many make the most respectful bow, arms outstretched beyond their head while on their knees. A truly beautiful experience. On a humorous side note, in one village, we talked to a young Shinto page who told us that they pray to Jesus as well. In his words, "We don't care what God blesses us, just that we are blessed." How can one ever choose hell? The most common argument I hear in favor of hell is that it's a state of separation from God. Another slight rewording, the one that makes more sense, is that God's light burns the wicked soul so that one feels like they're suffering. Both explanations seem fine on the surface. After all, good and evil are binary measures that only exist relative to free will. Like light and shadow are both definitions that exist as a natural outcome of studying light, a feature embedded into the system itself. Here's a problem with these depictions, however. How do you choose hell? Oh, through the actions and beliefs in your life. Problem: people change all the time. To give an extreme example, I have a personality disorder. I straight up do not know who I will be in a month. Will I be a fundamentalist? An atheist? Muslim? Christian? Buddhist? My very sense of self is shattered and troubled by a psychological condition. Whatever self I have is constantly shaken to its foundations by stress and depression. I could not tell you what I believe long-term because it would require me to have a long-term image of myself that's consistent. To give a less extreme example, think about the person you were 5 years ago. Think about who you were 10 years ago. In what ways have you changed? Before you label your behaviors as progressive and regressive, think about what they are moving towards, away from. Whatever answer you come up with, you will realize one major truth: you have definitely changed. And so, how could anyone choose hell? What if they have a crisis of faith right as they die? Did they lose belief in God? What if something pushes a person who's been good all their lives over the edge at the last minute? Are they suddenly bad now? Did one decision damn them to hell because of when it was made? There are two models of chronicity that come from this, and both are strangely cruel. The idea that we choose hell from our final actions, the idea that we choose hell from our total actions, one is rooted in a shockingly narrow time scale, and the other returns out to a good, bad boy points system. Worst is, the second view is corroborated by the Bible through all its parables of wheat and chaff, left and right hand, chosen and unchosen. Universalism cannot argue its way out of that, because for something to be universal, there cannot be a segregation of people. So, how does one choose hell? How is one part of the chosen or unchosen? What do you have to do to be chosen according to this dichotomy reinforced over and over in the Bible?